Hello and welcome to Galactic Goddess podcast and show. I'm your host, Radha Nelia, and today we have a very special guest, Joshua Hathaway. Welcome.
Aloha, Radha, and guests. Hello, hello.
So Joshua is a men's, I guess you'd say, leadership, coach, and he helps men really awaken to their divinity in various ways. We're going to cover a little bit about that today through the 5 basic forms of bullshit, which I love. But I would love for you, Josh, to just let the viewers know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. I like to call myself a transformational trickster. I do kind of a lot of different things in the field of transformation. I have my master's degree in somatic psychotherapy. I founded a brand called No Bullshit Communication, where I've been working with individuals and couples and organizations for a decade now, helping build trust. It's really what it comes down to, is just helping build trust through excellent communication processes and radical honesty and deep listening. And then during that time, I've also been leading men's work. Been doing and leading men's work for 20 years now, and
Wow.
have just in the last couple of years founded an organization with a couple of my dearest men, Robert Schwenkler and Peter Rubin, called the Brotherhood Community. And so we run quarterly men's leadership intensives, where we bring a small group of like a dozen guys together to do some very deep work, kind of dropping down into the shadows, peeling off our armor as men, and really getting radically honest and real with each other about our struggles, about our gifts, about our beauty, and about our challenges, and come out the other side, kind of all the cobwebs cleared and new channels opened up in our bodies and our hearts and our minds, and capable of imagining our world in a completely new way. So that's really important work that I'm loving doing. And along those lines, also supporting men and having the most exquisite relationships with women that they can have. The work that I do, I run a course called Authentic Dating Secrets, and the work that I do there is focused on heterosexual guys who are really wanting more like deeply satisfying, rich relationships with women, who are turned off by like the manipulative, weird, like pickup world, but are feeling starved and lonely for connection with the feminine, and are wanting to get more in touch with their own potency, their own value, and their sensitivity and capacity to relate to women. So it's kind of the big picture of my stuff. No bullshit communication on the Brotherhood Community. And then I'm sort of coming out into the world more as a teacher of Tantra with my partner, Lily Love. We're going to be doing a little international tour here in the next few months, which I'm excited about.
Oh, I cannot wait. I know both of you are just shining stars. And then when you guys came together, I'm like, it's a supernova.
What? I know, right? We're cracking up. We're like, what do you get when you cross a Tantra teacher and a no bullshit communication trainer? You get no bullshit Tantra.
I love it. I'm seriously going to have to take you guys' course. That's amazing.
Please do.
And I'm so excited about the work you do, and I've been following it for a while because I really appreciate, men that are stepping out of the paradigm that they were given and sort of recreating the new structure, because that old paradigm obviously hasn't been working. I'd love for you to speak on, like, how did you break out of the old mold? Because there is this really, rock solid mold that's really hard for men to escape. They get indoctrinated into it since they were little boys, and it's very hard for them to open up, especially in their heart.
Yeah, thank you for asking, and thanks for the sensitivity that's even embedded in the question, like a sensitivity to what men are up against, in terms of our conditioning, in terms of our training. I like to say that if anybody who thinks that men won in the game of patriarchy and women lost are thinking with a patriarchal mind that values money and force and all the things that patriarchy values. And according to patriarchy's values, like, men have more of that by and large. But if you look at like radical feminist values, if you look at a value for deep sensitivity and embodiment, if you look for a value of like relational intelligence and the capacity to cultivate really deeply meaningful and intimate connections, if you look at emotional intelligence, if you look at all the things that we would value from a more feminine perspective, like men have been utterly denied these things in our culture, right? We've been systematically denied them in our culture. And so what I like to say is we're all in this together. Like it's not men against women here. Like anybody who gets caught up in that is still living in an old paradigm. We really need to be coming together, and it's hard and it's scary. We don't trust each other. We're afraid of each other. We're like, we want each other so bad, and we're totally afraid of each other at the same time. And it's this incredible, that's the electric polarity that feels so dicey and yet so delicious at the same time, right? And you know, I have to say, like, I feel really fortunate because I kind of walked in multiple worlds since I was a young man, because I was raised by a very masculine presenting homosexual man. My dad was gay. He was my primary parent growing up. He was in the closet. He was revered by like my whole community, and all my friends just wanted to be like my dad. Like he was like such a role model for so many of my friends. And they didn't know he was gay. They didn't find out until, you know, like late high school, early college, that he was gay, most of them. And so I always had this very unique perspective as a man, seeing I was just surrounded by men being intimate with each other, like in a loving way, not in a sexual way. It's not like I like saw that stuff like any normal parent that doesn't do that in front of their kids. But like I got to see that, but I was also like this very stereotypical, like boy energy boy who liked to like rough and tumble and play hard and was just the alpha male on the playground and had to be like the captain of whatever team was being picked. And like, so I had this very much of a jock mentality and like lived inside the deep sort of athletic and jock culture, while also holding this really sensitive side that was always a part of my life, my internal life. And so that's not to say that it didn't take a lot of courageous steps for me to sort of really claim my more sensitive side. And one of those courageous steps was, I remember telling one of my friends that my dad was gay when I was in high school. It was one of these like late night moments. We would sneak out of the house all the time and go get in trouble and fuck around. And we were just sitting on the roof of a school one night and talking about deep things. And I just remember saying, you know, like, I feel bad that I never told you this before, but my dad's gay, you know? And it was like this moment that I was so scared of, but I revealed myself. I said what was true. And it brought us closer. It made our relationship deeper. It made him trust me more. It made me trust him more. And all of a sudden, like a relationship that was like my best friend became like a brother, like somebody who I knew would be my brother for the rest of my life in that moment. Defining moments of just like, honestly, I guess you could even say that the whole path has been that of like one more vulnerable, scary, true thing that I say about my life, you know, and then another and another and another.
That's amazing. That is powerful. Do you think that men are afraid to share things that are vulnerable because of the way they've been taught that they just need to be strong and tough and not have feelings, or what is that about? I guess I'd like to know.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all want to say we all feel scared to say what's vulnerable. Like I think that you know, women and men both struggle with this. None of us were given really healthy models for it. But at least women were given permission to feel and to have intimate connections. Women are allowed to touch each other. There are all these things in our culture where that men don't get. All these forms of intimacy that are relegated to faggots and women, right? In the patriarchal culture, right? And so we have a homophobia. Like, I don't want to be seen as homosexual, or maybe I'll like it and I don't want to be homosexual, so I can't be too intimate with men, right? And so there's that around other men. And then in general, yes, like we're taught to be isolate, we're taught to be strong, we're taught to I can handle it myself, like I don't need anybody. And we're literally trained to shut our emotions off. So many men don't even feel. They don't even know how to feel. Like the only emotions that come up, rise up past the like the like waterline of what they've buried
Mm-hmm.
is rage and like attraction, you know, and like, so like men can finally feel when they're fucking, right?
Mm-hmm.
When men are having sex, it's finally a place where they can be in their bodies and feel and have pleasure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so of course it becomes this thing that we're obsessed with and terrified of at the same time, and with all the power dynamics around it. So yeah.
It's interesting. I never thought of it that way, that maybe that was a place where men could release their emotions, you know, and so that's why sometimes it becomes like an unhealthy addiction rather than channeling it with a partner that could receive all of you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just so many men cut off from our bodies. It's one of the few places where we can be in our bodies, you know, where we can be vulnerable, and it's sanctioned. Culturally sanctioned vulnerability, even though so much of porn sort of pushes us even away from vulnerability and sex, right? Like, it's amazing how this culture drives us away from true intimacy at every turn, you know?
Yeah, that's hard. It's hard for both parties, I think, because women are craving the connection, the heart to heart. They want to feel that merge, you know, not just sexually, but emotionally, mentally, even spiritually, you know, that the capacity to grow together is so much there, but it's these limiting beliefs and a lot of men thinking they just need to do life themselves, like they just need to do it themselves, and then it's like you're just like an extra, you know, like that's a lot of the way that I hear women talk about men, is they just feel like they're just like, oh, it's the weekend, so he wants to take me on a date and do the whole routine, but I don't feel like I'm immersed in his being, in his heart, you know. And I wonder what the cost of that is to men as well, you know, where they can't open to receive the gifts that women want to give, because we want to give, you know, we're created to give our heart, but also like we care, you know, we're built that way. We're caretakers. And so when we can't give fully, it actually causes us physical pain in our heart, you know. That's our pain.
Yeah, when there's a divide, that disconnection that you feel, right? That lack of intimacy, it's like connection isn't enough. Like intimacy, real sharing. I hear the longing in there for like a deep, full sharing of life, and not just like sharing of a nice night on the weekend, right? You want to do life, and that is an incredibly vulnerable sort of ask in a certain way too, right? So even as a woman, to be able to own that and be like, yeah, this is what I want, right? I want the whole thing, right? That's in itself like a vulnerability, right? And then to find a man who you might want that with, and open up to him in that way. And for men, same thing, to find somebody you really want to do life with and open your heart to them. It's like way safer to play it cool, right? We all know what's going to happen when you just play it cool, right? It's going to maybe be hot for a little while and then dissipate, and you'll just go on to the next, like whatever. You just keep scrolling Netflix, right? Like, but when nobody knows what happens when you open your heart and you say like the scariest, truest thing, like, oh my God, like I really like you, and it scares me because I just think about you all the time, and I feel like one of the things that that men get sort of, I think a core fear that a lot of men aren't even conscious of, is this fear of being sort of engulfed by a woman, by like disappearing into a woman's world, right? There's something so compelling and so attractive and so alluring about the feminine, right? It's like, I know that I can get caught up in being afraid that I'm going to lose my like free will or something, because I'm just going to, you know, just want to be around and have more of this like softness and pleasure all the time. And I'll do anything for it, you know? So, you know, what very few of us, I think, are really get, but more and more people are awakening to, is just what an incredibly vulnerable thing love is. What a scary thing opening our hearts to love. Really. And my partner and I are enjoying that. So, I mean, enjoying most of the time, enjoying that in such a rich way, just like in this constant discovery of how scary it is to love somebody so much, you know, to really say, to pick somebody and say, I choose you, like you're my person and we're doing life together. And all of a sudden, how completely vulnerable that is compared to like, I'll do Tuesdays with you, you know.
I'll give you Sunday, I'll give you Monday,
right?
No, but I'm in awe of you two coming together so beautifully, and you're sharing your vulnerability together. Both, I think I saw some posts and just saying like, this is really vulnerable, and it was so inspiring. You guys really inspire me. Your vulnerability through the process and your sharing is important and essential, and it's because we need to see different kinds of role models. You know, we don't really have that in the world, you know, what a healthy relationship is. Like, I think first of all, so many times, like our lineage, you know, we don't have that. And then we see the movies and it's like, it's da da da. And it's just like this total fantasy that has nothing to do with talking about real stuff, about getting to the core of the issues. And it just comes together like magically, or else they lose them and get them back. And it's just like this euphoria. But I mean, love is euphoria, but it's also, it is vulnerability. And there's something about it takes courage, really, real courage, like not just some fantasy, you know, it takes real courage because you're really letting someone affect your inner being in a way that's, I think, the most powerful thing that you could ever do, and probably the most terrifying thing you could ever do, is actually really, really, really open your heart and say, okay, let's both open our hearts, you know, and see what happens. It's like, that's very gorgeous.
Giving someone access to all your freaking PIN numbers, man. Like, you know, you're just like making yourself so vulnerable, right? Like, it's amazing, really. Like, it's so delicate, and it takes so much courage, and it takes so much presence, right? Like, which I think is an undervalued thing in our culture, right? Is just to be present with all of the layers, right? To be present with my own vulnerability, be present with the fear that makes me want to do the stupid thing to sabotage it in this moment, because that's just what I know and I've done again and again, right? To be present with the impulses, or even the impulse to say a mean thing, or to send a jab out when I feel tender or threatened in some way, right? Like, to be present with that in myself, and then slow down and take a breath and be like, okay, like, we know, you know, that just brings out our mundo malo. That just brings out the bad world when you do that stuff, right? Like, you know how that feels. Don't go there. And then to be able to be present with whatever's coming up in my partner, right? I have to be able to cultivate a presence in myself, right? To be able to notice all this stuff happening and not react to it, and not shut it down or shame it, or then go running off in the distance with whatever energy shows up in here, right? But to be able to be like, okay, let me feel into that. Let me feel into that. But then that cultivates the resources to be able to meet my partner there. So in that moment when she's not at her best, or I'm not at my best, then the other person can hold presence and sort of know that there's more at work there, right? And treat the other person with compassion and kindness, and be curious, in fact, because we're not just like lovers. We're not just like people who share a house and pay the bills together. Like, we're spiritual allies. She's my queen, and I'm her king. And we are the greatest allies we've ever had in our own healing, right? And so, and if anybody thinks that you're getting together with somebody for any other reason, ultimately, than just to like heal the wound, you know, good luck with that. But I'm not, that can sound like a threat. Like, oh, all it is healing wounds. But guess what? Like, you're never going to stop healing these wounds. Like, we didn't come in here to sort of bask on a sort of island and chill. Like, the people who are on this planet right now came in here to heal some deep ancestral shit. Like, we came in here to channel it through our own bodies and our own emotions and our own relationships, and to walk into the hall of mirrors and come out like clear and clean and unsusceptible to those illusions anymore, right? Like, and so anybody that we call in has to be an ally in that, has to be somebody that can meet us there, that can buoy us and support us and make our walk even stronger.
That's amazing. So beautiful. I was feeling that so much, that we are the ones that are here to activate and heal the wounds together. And that is important, to find a partner that understands that it's not just whatever. It's not whatever. It's so much more. And there's so much potential. There's so much magic available. There's so much healing. And so how do you get to a place with two people? Because not everyone has that understanding, right? It's an amazing thing that you're teaching men, and I'm so grateful for the work you're doing, and may it go out into the whole universe. But a lot of people don't have that education, understanding. And so how does that work? How does that work when maybe a woman is like, okay, I want someone to meet me here, but then it's just not,
Yeah, I'm with you, girl. And there's three things really that come to mind. The first one, and the easiest one to sort of, I just want to acknowledge how easy it is to get hopeless as a woman right now. Women have been striving for a couple of generations to really like come into balance with their masculine, right? Our culture has called them to it, right?
Yeah.
And so women have been like really seeking a balance within themselves that men haven't been for so long, right? So there are ways that we can look at it and say women are farther down the path as a group than men are of creating the kind of balance that we're looking at. Because one way of describing this whole great turning that's happening here is the healing and the reweaving and the re-reverencing of the masculine and feminine, right? We can say that the whole thing is about evolving to a new, not going back to an old, ancient, romantic sort of version of masculine and feminine. No, evolving a completely new level of deep reverence, respect, and honoring between the masculine and feminine, right? And so I think women are a bit ahead of the curve on this, right? In terms of ahead of men, because men have had no good reason to enhance their feminine or to seek out the feminine, but to survive in this culture, women have had to get stronger masculine, right? And like show up in their masculine, which can be dangerous, right? Because then you're so used to like protecting yourself and showing up in your masculine that it's hard to get out of your masculine and get back in your feminine. So you're like nitpicking and like trying to control, right? Because that's that masculine element in you that wants safety instead of being able to surrender that protectorship over to the masculine and across from you, so you can just lean into your feminine. So I want to say it's easy to get hopeless, but don't fucking get hopeless. Like, that's your work. Your work is to come back and again to like, he's out there. I know that my partner's out there. I don't care how many people I see that aren't him. I know that he's there for me, and I know that we're looking for each other right now, right? So like coming back again and again, and that's for everybody, men and women. Like, I know that person is there. And then the second is that we have to be willing for it to be messy. You're not going to find a perfect person and it's just going to be perfect and you're going to go dancing into the sort of celestial sunset together. Like, there's going to be moments of that, right?
Yes, yes.
But I'm sorry, like we all shit in the living room sometimes. Like, you know, metaphorically speaking, like we all blow it, and we have to
Good reminder.
we have to cultivate it. You know, we have to cultivate a willingness to acknowledge that that's going to be a part of the process of dealing with that. And I think when any of us can have a clear enough vision of the kind of relationship we want, to keep sort of believing and knowing that it's possible and opening ourselves to it, then the only other piece is actually holding our fucking standards when people are showing up who are clearly not a fit, right? Like we all have to be honest with ourselves when, you know, and just know where our commitment lies, you know, and what part of ourselves we really want to wake up, because you know, there are parts of us that can wake up around some people, and that's fun, but that's not necessarily the kind of partnership that we want, right? And you don't have to. A lot of people are like, oh, either I can have my pussy wet or I can have my heart open with somebody, but I can't have my pussy wet and my heart open, right? And it's like, you keep saying that, you keep finding that, like, I promise, right? Like,
manifest. Don't say that, ladies. Don't say that. Come on.
So, and the practicing keeping your pussy wet and your heart open is up to nobody but you, right? Like, and then over here, I gotta keep practicing keeping my heart open and my cock hard. Like, I gotta keep that connection going for me over here, right? And like, the more I do that, the more attractive I become to precisely the women who I want in my life, you know, and precisely the woman in this case who is my queen, right? And we're still doing that work to be able to have it all, to say yes, like, oh fuck, like I can have it all, like it can be this good. Yes, like I can learn through pleasure. I don't have to learn through pain anymore. I don't have to learn through like running away from what hurts. I can learn through like increasing my tolerance for pleasure in my life, for abundance, for joy, for beauty and love, right? That's
so divinely said. I love that. Like, that polarity is always like been a conversation for many people, men and women, that polarity. And I think it's time that we integrate, because there's got to be more. You know what I mean? Why can't we have it all? Why can't we have pleasure and love? You know, that goes together, you know, and partnership and friendship. And we end up playing so many different roles, I think, for our divine counterpart. It's not just one dimensional. Whereas in the past, it was like, you're just going to be my wife and cook and clean. And, you know, it's like, no, we're partners in this universe. Like, we're spiritual partners. That's important.
Yeah. And it's amazing when you hold your standards, when like basically what the tendency for most of us to do is to compromise somewhere when we don't think we can have it all. Well, fuck, like I can't have it all, so maybe I can't get it all, so this could be good enough. The moment you compromise, the moment you like say, oh, I'll settle for this, is the moment you lose the capacity to call forth the very thing in that person that you want, because you've just surrendered it in yourself, right? But when you can say, like, I stand for this, this is what I stand for, I will not be treated this way. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go. It just means here's the line in the sand, motherfucker. Like, this is how I want to be treated. When you can stand up, like, that is an essential, like, you have to be willing to teach your partner. You have to be willing to train them in a certain way, not in some like power over way, but in a loving way. Like, you have to be willing to train somebody how to love you and how to treat you. And to model that for them. Like, this is how I treat myself, and this is how I'm willing to love myself, and this is the line I draw. Because if we're really lucky, we're going to meet somebody who is going to expand our consciousness so much. Is going to teach us so much, and who is also going to be open to us teaching them. Right? It's this two-way street where we get to inform each other. We get to be these divine mirrors for each other. Right? And in order to do that, we have to be willing to, on the one hand, like, hold our terms really clearly and know what our values are. And on the other, to surrender and to not get too brittle and get too hard, right?
Yeah.
And that's the work, that's the feminine, right?
Yeah.
The holding our principles is the masculine principle, and the feminine is like,
I love that.
Surrendering.
That's just so divine. I know you and Lily are such great archetypes to represent that coming together. So I'm in awe of watching you two, and so grateful to know you both. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to talk about the 5 basic forms of bullshit today because we've been so enraptured in this amazing conversation. So I'm just very grateful that we could connect and that you could share yourself and your work with our viewers. Thank you so much for the work you do from the behalf of the feminine. Thank you. It's time. And I'm just very grateful for the work both of you guys are doing. It is time. It is time. So with that, thanks for joining us. And I will put all of your information below so people can contact you.
Thank you.
I hope we can come together again and talk about these 5 principles.
I do too. I look forward to it. And I think the one thing that I'll say is, we're not here to do it alone anymore. We're here to do it together. And not only does that mean in relationship between men and women or romantic sort of partnership, but that means like guys are coming together and leaning on each other instead of relying on our women to be our emotional sort of counselor, and women are coming together and relying on each other to get that support and learning how to not commiserate with each other and just like, talk shit. It's so easy to get into that cycle, right? But how do you find community as a man, a community of men, as a woman, community of women that you can really like lean into, and they got your back, and they're seeing you for real and mirroring you in a really authentic way. Like that in so many ways is the key to having a healthy merging like partnership, So, so hopefully people will come check out some stuff we're doing at the Brotherhood community. Lily and I's Tantra retreats that we'll be putting calendars out for pretty soon. And Radha, what a pleasure, an exquisite pleasure to connect with you today, radiant today. And I'm so grateful to get a chance to talk.
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day, guys, and take care. Bye-bye.